What's up? Welcome to the American Gods discussion show. I'm super excited to talk about season 3, episode 2. My name is Kari Lane. I'm joined by my awesome co-host. We got over here. There we go. Flobito in the house.
I'm not sure what direction we are. I'll just
It's
do both.
it's weird. I know. I'm like, is it?
My
Yeah.
left and rights were confusing as that is, but now forget about it. But yes, American Gods after show. I love hanging with you, Kari. You know what? Highlighted my week is seeing how these guys interact and hanging with you, talking about them. So.
Yes. So we are diving into episode 2. If you missed our first one, go check it out. It's also on my channel. Make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And also go check out Flobo's channel as well. There we go. That way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So, Flobo, speaking of, what did you think of episode 2? Are we getting into it more, or what's your thoughts?
Here's the thing, yo. So the episode's called Serious Moonlight. So I figured, what was that going to be? And frankly, we got a little bit of an answer in Chicago.
Yes.
I'm a bit more bored this week than I was last week. Overall, I didn't realize how much I missed some of the older gods. Besides Mama G, she's my favorite. But it's cool to see them interact to kind of put this season within the same wheelhouse as the first. We didn't get any updates on Mad Sweeney. It'll probably happen next week. But I like the fact that the things from season 1 and season 2 were just completely discounted. So I'm on board.
Agreed. I'm so glad that we brought back other characters we know, opened the world more of seeing, even though they weren't maybe introduced, but even the memorial having the different gods being present was great, because then it's like, oh cool, we're not in just a regular world anymore. I want that weirdness. Like, that's what we want in this show. You don't want just a regular, like, oh, I went about my day in my life. You know, it's like,
paying taxes, changing a tire.
Yes, right? What did you think of the start? I thought it was interesting. So at the very beginning, we get the different aspect ratio. It's 1690, Wisconsin territory. It's the Native Americans versus the French. And I thought, and I want to know your thoughts too, I thought it was a really interesting concept of the natives praying to their god, and then the French are praying to theirs, and who wins. And that's just such a, like, we could think of, in our present day world, you could pray to whoever, but seeing it within this context, you're actually seeing them at work, essentially. So what did you think of this concept of showing different people's praying to different gods, and like, what are the ramifications of who wins?
So we saw a little bit of that last week with the aspect ratio changing, and I was like, oh, where there's going to be a thematic this season? And hey, you know what? We're all home now. We all have rectangular screens, so why not play with the aspect ratio to get things across? But you're absolutely right. At first, I was a little disturbed. I was like, oh man, they're totally slaughtering these people. I'm even though I'm not a Native American or a member of the First Nations, I usually wonder about the representation of those peoples on fictional things. But I will say this: there's a reason why religions are more popular now than other ones, and that really comes along with spread or conquest or brute force, what we saw here. So it was difficult to watch, but it kind of sets the stakes back into the season. Why do things matter? And wow, what did we saw? We saw basically a slight open neck. We saw missing fingers. I mean, it was all in the first 4 minutes before the intro, so it was nuts. I liked it.
I did too. I like the different time period, and we've seen that before last season and first and second season, so it's really great to have that back. Yeah. I mean, we've had it before, but I really felt like, ooh, we're in a different time. What's going on here? Then we have Shadow with property manager. I like if you have the subtitles on, they really only call her property manager. She doesn't get a name really yet. And I'm like,
I had to look it up. I had to look it up. It's Marguerite, but yeah, you're right. Yeah. I was like, property manager?
She is not having it at all. She's like, nope, and not friendly.
But you called it though. I was like, oh, Kari's right. Like, it wasn't going to be this giant. It was like, hey, you're on this property. Just kidding. You know, help you out with the keys.
I'm glad she's taking care of the property. But we'll get to something else essentially with her behavior later that we'll nitpick a little bit more.
I love nitpicking.
Yes, right. You know, you can love a show, everybody, and still nitpick it. Calm down now.
And if you don't agree with that, make sure it's Kari D. Lane on social media. Just be like, yeah.
I know, right? Go follow it. Yes. So what do you think of, we get his dream with the shopping, like the store, and the beautiful Nigeria magazine, and the woman on there is just like, we've been waiting for you. And we also get the blazed eyes bison what's going on here? What is it? We haven't seen this character for a while, so what's going on?
Yeah, I know. I kind of missed the what was it? The Hotel America, the Motel America Buffaloes from before. But you know, this actually is a bigger question. And I actually had in my notes. I'm like, man, we now know Shadow and Odin, and Mr. Wednesday are pretty much bloodline related, and even we'll get into Tyrell later also. But it's like, what are Shadow's powers? If you look back the 3 seasons, we saw the Firefly things, we saw the Peacock thing today.
You thought of snow, and it made it snow before.
Oh yeah, and the date for the clunker thing we'll probably get into.
Yeah.
It's like, I wonder if this is all coming together. And the Nigerian thing, for a second, I thought that was his mom manifesting. That was the question I had. I'm not sure that was the case, but that'd be a cool way of looking at it.
Yeah. Well, I think in the preview for next time it showed Bilquis on the magazine, and I didn't notice her on this one, or at least I didn't think it was her at first. So I'm wondering how that will change for later. But I thought it was really cool to bring that back in, because it was like, okay, we kind of forgot about that creature for a hot minute, and you're like,
right.
well, what does this mean? And 100% agree with you. I'm like, what are Shadow's powers? What can we see him do? Because I'm gonna go with it something along the line of like, kind of like a premonition, because he got to see the numbers, so kind of seeing things ahead of time, but something where him thinking something can make it happen. But I wonder how detailed or specific, or how, forceful that is. Like, is it something where it's a broader context, like he changed the weather, or could he be like, oh, I hate this person, and then they die? Like, how pinpointed specific is this going to be? So
I have no idea, but I would love to have that mystery answer sooner than later. Look, this show has you're perfect at taking things and not answering them, but I really feel they draw it out. Yeah, yes. I think season 3 has to give me some answers, because you're right. When you don't know what the stakes are as far as what Shadow can do and why he's important to this, then it starts to waver just a bit.
Also, how like immortal / like durable is he? We've seen him get beat up before, but like how, being half god, what does that mean in terms of like, can he be really close to death and come back just fine, or like what? How much in danger is he in situations?
Well, if Shadow can regrow a full head of hair, he must be a god. I'm jealous. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's hard to say what he can do, what he can manifest, and I do hope he gets revealed. But he's been through a lot that I think more an average human being, or even it will later. His little exchange with Cordelia, like, look, this is a whole nother stuff, and I am not crazy yet. Maybe that has some resilience, may have something to do with it as well.
Yes, and then we have an interesting predicament with our poor Bilquis. I think I'll get into what I think is going on with her when we get to that. But we have William Sanders. I don't like him. He's the owner, CEO of the app pretty much. And like, I'm going to show you how to use this. And, he's being so forceful on her. And she's like, well, let me show you.
Yeah, was that foreplay? Like, does he do foreplay as his own job?
Right. I was thinking it's one of those, he controls this sexual-oriented website, and it seems like maybe he gets his pick of who he gets to interact with sexually, and like, you're using my site, you're getting whatever, so I get to have whatever, I'm guessing. Yeah. But I was concerned with maybe her absorption of him, essentially, made her ill, because it wasn't worship. He wasn't like, I love you, you're amazing, the way we have seen other gentlemen be. So I'm wondering if she takes a life, absorbs a life that's not as freely given, can that essentially poison her?
Man, I wish we watched this at the same time, because I was a bit confused. But I like that theory now, because again, we go back to the first season, and I mean, that first absorption was pretty much peak television. That in the scene with the Jinn, where the two sticks up my mind, that first season.
Right, yeah.
But that was the main difference. It was someone that was disrespecting her. He said that to touch her, and she basically relinquished that hold up.
Like, he himself is toxic. Yeah, like, he's a toxic person, and she consumed that I wonder if that is why she's ill.
That is definitely one of the things. I mean, he did apologize, but I like your theory way better.
Yeah. Thank you. For everybody watching, what are your thoughts on what's wrong with Bilquis? If you've read the book, no spoilers, please. We're only talking the show. Leave comments. Let us know. Yeah. I'm really curious if we'll get into it more, because we haven't seen even the full extent of her powers per se. So it's like, well, what happens if you get someone who who has ill will towards their person?
Well,
God.
the biggest issue I have with Bilk was an issue I had with a lot of the African gods, Mr. Nancy last season, and that is most of our citizens. You know, let's take out the American gods for a second. I was a citizen, and there were things happening in our society where I was like, you know what? I don't deal with this. I don't get involved in politics. And what politics did was throw a brick through my window, jump in my living room, and says, "Discuss me now, player." Like, Bilquis has incredible power, but she hasn't picked a side. She's not visible, and there's no one to worship. So I do think she's going to be drawn out to make a decision sooner than later. I hope it's old gods too, by the way.
Same. I mean, I like the new gods in a way, but gotta go with the OGs. But I'm wondering if she will seek help from maybe whatever side, and that maybe could sway her one way or the other.
Well, there's only one person I think would be strong and I could approach her on a femininity scale, and that's Mama G! I want Mama G!
I don't know. I bet Shadow can help her out.
That's true. See. They have rapport as well.
I bet he help her out. Speaking of Shadow, yeah, we have the first. Well, let's talk about Chicago real quick. He gets the invitation for the funeral memorial service for Zoria, and goes. Which also, before he goes there, we learn that the town that he's staying in, Lakeside, has a Nordic heritage and founded by Lester Hamilton. So that was kind of interesting of like, okay, so this is another Norse place. I'm wondering if Wednesday, of course he did probably, but
if you're a Norse god fan, you have all your fill this episode. They packed it in.
Yes. So he goes, what do you think of, on his way there too, he has the car, and there's something weird with the car. I think her son died in that car. Yes. What do you think?
The son died in that car, and it being a Ford Thunderbird, possibly there's maybe some native blood in there. I thought it was a very interesting choice in vehicle.
Good catch, yeah.
Yeah, but I think the son has passed away.
Yeah, because she was really sensitive about it. Don't change anything about it. And that CD, keeping it, makes me feel like it was something he made and she wants to hold on to it. And that's why she doesn't want to get rid of the car. And then I felt really bad for her / Shadow. You're just being super oblivious right now. And he's like, oh yeah, where's your son? I'm like, dude, read the room. Like, she clearly is uncomfortable about this. I'm like, ugh.
The room has been cold for about a day. Maybe he wasn't acting right.
That's true. Because she didn't turn the heat on. But maybe they will turn the heat on. Hey. Yeah. Also,
I get it. It took me a minute. I thought it was a family show.
Ayo. Dude, with this show, no way. Right. So, since he's being Stag, speaking of Stag, the deer he hits seemed to be magical something. I thought it seemed kind of peculiar. It looked like maybe its leg was bleeding, because clearly it was bleeding on the car. But do you think there was something with that deer?
See, at first I was like, no, it's probably a random deer. Actually, a friend of mine actually hit a deer back in Indiana a couple of years ago, and it went full bore, bent the frame of the car, and it got up and it walked away. But then, again, the more you think about Shadow and his interactions with animals, you wonder if it's part of a bigger thing. Like, I won't guarantee you, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a scene like 4 episodes later where they flash back to that, and like, you see, I'm going to give you hints all the time, because, again, that whole animalistic, naturalistic thing in Shadow is still out to be undefined right now.
Maybe his powers connect to animals somehow, like they are guiding spirits for him, maybe. Yeah, I thought that was really weird. Oh man, I've been in a car when you hit a deer hits you. I've seen them run at your car. It is scary. Yeah. So I was like, no. Sorry, what was that?
It's like Jurassic Park. Like, wild animals.
Yes. Pretty much. And so we get to the memorial. We get Sharon Naborg, who is fun to see him again. He is a wild character. All the festivities there. And we learn Wednesday shows up, sneaks the invitation from, I don't know why, but I was like, it's the Tooth Fairy.
Oh, yeah. That's their kind of god, yeah.
Yeah, TYR. And gets a donation too. I thought that was really interesting to throw. I like that actor, and so it was fun to have this character thrown in. But yeah, did you think like maybe they're tooth fairy or something? Because it's a dentist's office and he wants to collect teeth.
I had to look this up because I was like, well, this person's really a friend of Wednesday. Like he donated with no problem. That never happens. Like ain't nobody like, oh,
Right?
Wednesday, what up? So I had to look it up, and Dr.
Yes.
Terrell was like was actually Tyr, right from the Norse mythology. Tuesday. I get it now, but I was like, I wonder
Mm.
why that was a dentist. Like, why would that be the modern interpretation of it?
I
He
mean,
kind of just like ripped that kid's tooth out, like it was no problem.
it's a way to enact violence and get blood and bone willingly.
Oh, this is why you should be watching it with me. You're a genius. Duh!
Yeah.
That kid was enjoying it too.
Yeah, they're like, this is great, no problem. And he's like, I'll pay you more than the tooth fairy.
Oh my goodness.
That would be my guess because it was bloody. He had the collection of teeth, and if you are he was a war god, like what is a way in normal society? I mean, I guess the doctor, well, any kind of doctor where you're dealing with bodies, I guess a mortician, but that's already dead, so maybe that wouldn't be the same. We think about stuff real deep on this show, everybody.
You're way deeper than
Yeah.
I am. I'm like, oh my god, you're right. It has to be.
So yeah, that's maybe my guess is like it's a way to still get blood and like I mean it's short bursts of I don't know, battle and conquest in a way.
Yeah.
But in a safe environment that he won't be outed or whatever.
Parents are like, oh, he uses fingers. That's cool.
Yeah.
Or he uses hands. All right.
He's not outed the way that tooth was. No, sorry, that doesn't work. That pun doesn't work. I'm sorry, everybody. That was a lame one. But yes, back to our Chicago party.
Yeah.
I think it was smart that it was a recruitment thing for Wednesday. And also, Tyr was not upset that Wednesday stole the invitation. I do like that Shadow got his own and was like, you're not invited. He's like, actually, I am.
Take that. I almost threw you out.
What did you think of Wednesday and Chernoborg's, like, essentially coming together again in their weird fight dance thing?
Well, when I heard Kaleida at first, I was like, oh man, this is going to come apart and be like a dance with the main pole, like a fire thing. So it seemed kind of somber, and I was like, oh man, this is kind of weird. But I'm kind of glad they had a mosh pit. You know what I'm saying? Like, why not like, punch it out with a couple friends and enemies? While Shadow got to be his own adventure with our sister, you had this issue of like, look, I'm mad with you, but look, it was a decision we had to make together in this war. Let's just punch it out. And your boy Wednesday was like, I promise, avenge. And I was like, oh, cool, that's awesome.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I also, not that they're old, but I like seeing these very energetic older characters, actors being so lively and animated, because I feel sometimes with some shows they really are like, you know, past a certain age point, those characters just are not very, you know, like right, I don't know. Right. So it was like really cool to see so much energy and gusto of like and like so energetic, and I loved everybody taking the vodka shots, and it was definitely a party.
It's just like, man, Wednesday and Chernobyl, here you go again. Clink.
Yes. And then, yes, as you mentioned, Shadow up on the rooftop having some fun. I thought that was really kind of sweet and romantic in a way, like their little hand holding and the moon in the sky, and as you said, the serious moonlight. So she puts the coin back in the sky. It was nice and bright. Yeah. But she points out you have 2 paths coming ahead, and I like his stop it with the bullshit. Like, tell me it's straight.
Thank you, man. Look, and maybe Shadow is batting for the fans here, but like, how many times have you seen this before? When we see a character, a side character, and there's always like, this will happen, but we'll say it vaguely enough, and there's that ticking time bomb. Look, I like it. It's a cool trope, but enough is enough, and even Shadow has seen it all. I understand. Worth the price of the drive. Love it. Now tell me what I gotta do. And unfortunately, he didn't get his answers. But to her credit, he did got a chance to say, look, this is all I know. So it all worked out.
Yeah, and I like that she pointed out. She's like, well, the stars can't be that specific. I'm just giving you general. And I'm glad he asked. Because I agree. I've had it so many times in a movie or show. And you're like, can someone please ask the question? I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And he's like, stop it. And at least he tried.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of somebody else that we don't get any real answers from, we learn in a way Wednesday's fiance, who is what her real motives are, and she plays for the all-girl squad. I was like,
Go on,
okay,
girl.
yeah. What did you think of that reveal that Wednesday's essentially just hired her because she's good hacker and good with technology?
I like it, but the question I want to ask you is there still a sexual element there? That to pretty well wasn't clear. I know Cordelia says that she's a lesbian, sure, but like I didn't know if Wednesday is saying she's my fiance as in one of my many like female companions, or it's kind of like his code name, like Whiskey Jack or whatever. I wasn't sure about that part, but the interaction was cool. I guess it was in a mystery. We all know Cordelia kind of came out of nowhere, so that would have played out. We would have think of something that she was a bad character had it been stretched out. So I'm glad they had that interaction. I'm glad there was the phone number now because of technology. I think she's hit all the notes so far for sure.
Also, I like that her to Shadow and Shadow back, like, hey, if you need to talk about anything, come to me. And I was like, oh, that's nice that like they're kind of bonding of like, it's one of those, yes, we both know Wednesday's kind of whack. Like, let's keep on the same page with each other. I think maybe not like sexual in traditional sense, but something where they could get not high, but off the energy they each give each other, essentially. Like, you know, if she has any sort of way to worship him or something, and if he's able to help her, you know, it's a different kind of, it's a more symbiotic, I guess, you help me, I help you relationship. I don't know why he would call her fiance then, because it is like, like, maybe that's just his weird pet way of controlling.
What a word to use, fiance.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. She doesn't seem to mind.
Yeah, she doesn't seem to mind. I personally, it wouldn't necessarily make it better or worse whether or not there was a sexual element there, but I just wasn't clear, despite the fact Cordelia gave forth her actual preferences. But I think it's kind of interesting that it was a fast introduction of that character, but already we feel more, we can relate to having student loans, right? So I'm on board. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I want to know more about her. Yeah. Well, I was going to say, bad pivot in a way, but speaking of sexual preferences that someone doesn't approve of, though, we get to see Salim back, and we get to see how essentially homophobic Wednesday is, because I was like, dude, he is, whew, dude, like, get with the times. I know you're old and all, but I forgot how aggressively disrespectful he is to Salim and the Jinn and, like, their relationship. Shaking my head for anybody who's just listening now.
It was one of those things where had Salim been in a heterosexual relationship, Wednesday was still rude about how he dumped someone he thought that was great. But the fact that you threw the extra slurs in there for spice goes, well, if I didn't think you were an old god before, you know, I don't think you are now. So, yeah, it was uncomfortable, but it's par for the course, unfortunately, for that character.
I love Salim, and I really hope he can connect with the Jinn and find out. Like, I agree. Like, I totally get that. If I would want to hear from him, we're done, rather than, you know, just kind of, I gotta do this thing. Bye.
But why did he lie? Why did the Jinn lie? What mission for Wednesday?
Well, it might be that thing that it's easier for him to lie and leave than actually say goodbye. Like, maybe it's romantic that way or something.
Oh, no, I get that. Well, no, I don't get that. No, guys, if you listen to this, I'm not advocating you. Well, what else?
Yeah, not supporting it, but it's one of those, like, okay, maybe it makes sense that you're gonna, it's easier to lie to you and then disappear than tell you the truth and actually be like, I can't say goodbye, so I just had to leave.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess for me is why Wednesday? Like, if the Jinn left, you have to do something else. So here's my crackpot theory that has no evidence. That's totally not going to mean anything. But I do think it's the Jinn that's going to bring back Sweeney to the world of the living. That's the mission for Wednesday, was to get Sweeney alive to kill Wednesday. That is my crackpot theory. If I'm wrong, make sure you at me on social.
But why would it be his mission for Wednesday if Sweeney was trying to kill Wednesday?
So I'm saying war for Wednesday is being facetious. Like I'm doing it for Wednesday. Wink, wink, wink.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe that's a good question. Of like, that's someone who could bring him back. I don't know. Let's go. We'll find out. Let us know your theories. Comments down below. I also we have the not Idris. right?
Even
The
Ibis,
what?
Mr. Ibis.
Yes, thank you. It was fun to see him again too, even though brief. And I liked him helping Salim out a bit, and so we'll see if we see more of them. I hope so,
Yeah.
because I like Salim, and I think his plot line is good, and I hope the Jin's okay. Because that was my other thought too. I'm like, is he okay?
Right.
Like
He's like
something happened to him? Yeah, you're like, oh no, what happened to him?
This is what we were saying in this episode. We got to see Salim, we got to see Mr.
We
Ibis,
saw a lot of
we
people.
got to see Chernobog. Like, it's cool that we went back to some of the previous characters, so it doesn't feel like season 3 is on its own.
Mm-hmm. Well, then the other part, in a way, of being on your own, we have Shadow back in town, and we find out that Allison is missing, and everyone's being super weird, and I'm like, dude, why is everyone being weird? And, okay, so, yes, he is the new guy in town, but I'm like, is this a little bit racist that they're all like, yo, the black dude did it? Because that town is very Caucasian, mostly, that I've seen. So I was like, yeah, okay, you guys.
It's a lot of it racist. I mean, everyone saw Allison do a little flirt in the store. You know, right? The tour guide was kind of like, let's go and sell him a ticket. Like, it was a little bit subtextual there, but the fact the home guy walked in, said, I don't even want to pass you this time. I will pay for bacon, and got the stink eye. So racist.
Yeah, it felt so, I'm like, really? You guys are blaming the one? Or at least it's like, give him benefit of the doubt. I mean, I guess it's the outsider thing, not trusting someone. But they were, I'm like, damn, y'all turncoat real fast of, oh, welcome. Okay, maybe you did something bad. I'll hate you now. I'm like,
I thought it was Enchanted. At first it was so abrupt and so different. I thought Lakeside had changed. Once he came back with the coin, giving up the coin in the sky, maybe something would have happened. Okay. So I was like, I wonder what the fallout is. And I go, oh, in the real world, Allison is missing. So I guess I understand. But you're right. It was chilling to walk into a restaurant, sit in a corner, and have the whole world look at you like.
I was like, this is really making me nervous for him. And then the other thing, too, side note on Mystical, side pivot, what do you think of that clunker thing of picking the date? I feel that is something magical there and does have to do with his powers. Because I want to say that's his powers that was able to help him figure out the dates. Maybe not someone helping him, but it could be someone helping him. What do you think?
Yeah, I think those are powers, and that's you see that a lot in YA fiction of all things, like the manifestation of your instincts, and sometimes it's called Divergent, sometimes it's called whatever, but I like the fact that he was able to pick that one part, March 23rd, 7 p.m., like, it's going down there. But again, when that happens with the empathy with animals, it's hard to describe what Shadow can do or what Mike can do.
He's in tune to nature because then he knows when the ice is going to break.
I will buy that. I will buy that.
It's a little bit of a stretch, but
it makes sense to me. But yeah, when I saw that change, I go, he's getting closer to manifesting who he is and what his power is. It's much like when we're teenagers and we're trying to wear the coolest designer clothes to stick out, and then one day you realize you can't keep up with the Joneses. You make a cool outfit, but you're cool because your outfit's unique. You go, oh wait, I don't have to play that game. I can do my own thing. What? We're getting some of that with Shadow right now.
I thought it was also really weird, just in like a real world practical sense. I'm like, well, shit, how many cars are in your lake? Aren't you polluting it? Just letting all these cars sit in the water later? I don't know. It just took me out of it for a minute. I'm like, what are you doing to your lake? You're going to put a car? What? Because apparently this happens every year? Like, it's going to pile up.
It's funny because I heard that. I was like, small town America. Am I right? No offense to you guys in small town America. I'm just saying. I'm from Brooklyn. We don't have lakes to do that with.
I know. I'm like, wait, you go on lakes that are frozen? What? I'm Southern California, so I'm like, huh? What are you talking about? Also, I mean, I guess I appreciated that the property manager essentially kind of apologizes for her behavior, because I was like, girl, you have already met him and talked to him, and you automatically assumed he was this guy. It's like,
Yeah, I really want to shut up on the fireplace, though. I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was your question. But yeah, I like the fact she warmed up to him a bit, because she knew, well, one, you can't go on the right foot with somebody when you put a gun to their chest or their back. And even then, even when he saw her at the newspaper, it was kind of like, oh, yeah, I totally did that. No apologies. Bring her out of the car in one piece. So
I mean, the police officer, our sheriff dude, was pleasant enough. He definitely could have been far more rude and aggressive, and so I think he handled it well. Like, hey, I'm sorry I have to do this and whatnot. And it's like, okay, your stories checks out and everything. So you're just like, okay.
Does it? Yeah.
But Shadow Man, I just roll my eyes at everybody like, did you really do this? And you're like,
he's like, no one likes the Passies here. I don't trust him.
Yeah. I was like, okay. I'm glad I got to see how big those were at first. Side note on the pasties, because I'm like, you mean pastries? I'm like, oh no, it's a meat. I get it. Okay.
I straight looked them up. I was like, I don't know if you call them pasties or meat patties or empanadas, but I wanted a couple right after watching them.
Yeah, it is essentially. Yeah, that's a good. But they were big. It was like fries and something else. I'm like, that looks interesting. I'd try it. And then, okay, so as you mentioned, what do you think the dealio is with that peacock in the woods? And also after that point, we see something essentially fly over town. Like there was this kind of weird shadow, something. But what do you think about all that?
So these are animals that we've seen, we'll see or read about in a lot of fictionalized versions of native text. Like the thunderbird, I think, is what we saw, or a big spanned bird we saw, the buffalo, the bison with the fired eyes, and even the peacock too. And so I do think there is an actual native soil element to what Shadow can manifest. Maybe it's him crossing a plane, maybe it's him acknowledging his mother's bloodline, because we don't know what that is quite as of yet. But yeah, again, it comes down to the big mystery now. Like, you're putting the seeds in there, I see it now, what does everything mean? But I do think we're going to see a lot more of the Thunderbird. I think that's going to be the through line of the season, much like how the Bison was last season with the Motel America stuff.
Yeah, I hope we get more from it, because that peacock was really kind of intriguing. It wasn't threatening. It's unfortunate it disappeared so quick, because I'm like, well, what are you trying to tell him? You're not being a good messenger if you're just like, bye. Yes, I did.
No, yeah.
Communicate more.
Stop staring at me. Yeah.
You're not looking. Okay, bye. And you're like, ah! But anyway. Was there anything else in the episode we didn't cover that you wanted to touch upon?
I just want to say overall, this episode, the second episode of the season, did go down a lot smoother than the first. I know they had to do a lot more setting up and reestablishing characters, but now we're getting to see how this relates to the other world. We got some of the older gods in tow. Yeah, we didn't see an update for Sweeney, or yeah, we don't know what the new gods' new plan is, which I think will be the other big thing that has to be answered soon.
Yeah, I don't think we saw any new gods in this episode.
Not at all.
Yeah.
But the mystery of Bilquis and Shadow's powers are enough to have me coming back next week.
Yeah, no, I think we're finally getting into it more. I think the first one was a good episode, but I feel this pulls you in more of just like, all right, we laid the groundwork. Here are the other little breadcrumbs along the way. And I do agree that the show needs to really like give us some more answers, like pull all these pieces in, because it's really like we've spread out the pieces everywhere, and we're like, okay, dude, give it just a little bit more. Can we shuffle the pieces a little closer to get a sense of what's going on? Because it's like, okay.
Absolutely.
But interesting enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
interesting enough, you're saying?
Interesting enough that it's like, yes, I want to keep going and know what happens next. But it is like, okay, give me bigger breadcrumbs. Come on now.
Right.
Yeah.
I want that fight, man. I mean, it feels like an eternity from the end of season 1 when he's like, I am Odin. Like, oh snap! It's just been this Cold War ever since. So I want to see some spears or like lightning bolts or like, you know.
Yeah, I'm just like, is there going to be? I mean, I don't know specifically via the book, but I'm just trying to envision like how would they do like a battlefield per se? Because I like your description. It is more of a Cold War right now. It's like, we're going to do this little thing over here, and then you're going to react this way. It's not really like two sides come together, brah! You know, it's not really that at this point. No, that's a good question.
Who knows?
Yes, leave your thoughts of what you think is going to happen down below. All right, and then we'll get over here of show. Boom. Where we can find everybody. So, Flobo, where can people find you online?
Yeah, you can find me at Flobo Boyce on Twitter, at Flopito on Instagram, flopito.com. And, if you want to support the homie, buy a t-shirt at flopito.threadless.com.
Yay! Nice. And then you can find me online, right? There we go, Kari D. Lade. And then you're here on this channel, so make sure to give a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you're an anime fan, I also am covering Sword Art online and have voice actors join me, so check those out. And yeah, just more fun stuff online. Thank you so much for watching. Leave your comments what you thought on the episode and what maybe you think is going down. Maybe lose some loose predictions, because it's definitely very vague right now, and I want to know more, and I bet you do too. So we'll see for next time, I guess. So thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye.